Released in December 1992, Ranma 1/2 Bakuretsu Rantohen was the swiftly released sequel to Ranma 1/2 Chonai Geki Tohen, following the prior game by a mere 9 months. While this game may have been another in a long line of manga and anime-themed titles churned out in Japan, in the United States, the game helped to mark the beginning of the influx of marketing tie-ins that are now the norm for anime. Today it is expected to get the latest Dragon Ball or One Piece game, and even comparatively minor titles, such as Kill la Kill, have a game localized for American audiences. Released by Messiah on Christmas Day of 1992, Ranma 1/2 Bakuretsu Rantohen was sold out in Japan by the time New Year arrived, having moved 320,000 copies by mid-January. The game was more colorful than the previous outing, with completely redrawn sprites that seemed more fluid and dynamic than its predecessor from earlier in the year. No doubt this is in large thanks to Hitoshi Ariga's involvement. Ariga is best known for his later work on Pokémon and Mega Man. But on this project, his designs served as the basis for the poses, movements, and attacks of each of the characters. 25 years later, Ariga discussed his involvement with the series, stating that he was brought onto the prior game, Ranma 1/2 Chonai Geki Tohen, in the midst of its development, and was tasked with working on the sprites for male and female Ranma, as well as Shampoo on that release. For Bakuretsu Rantohen, new characters were added that did not appear in the previous game. In the introduction, Principal Kuno mentions not fighting this time around, as a reference to his previous playability in the last game. The principal sets up the story and shows off the Super Famicom's Mode 7 capabilities before entering the character selection screen. Both of his children, Tatewaki and Kodachi, would be omitted from this go-around, which Ariga said was due to survey results from the previous title, stating that they were frustrating for players to defeat. Bonus character Cologne was also omitted. New fighters included Hikaru Gosenkugi, who Hitoshi Ariga explained was included so that children could feel skillful as they dispatched a weak character in the initial stage. He also states that Gosenkugi was meant to be a challenge for advanced players to use, and demonstrate their skill if they could beat hard mode while using him. Gosenkugi has rather limited range and slow movements, which help to further hinder his usability. Moose was added, and it was stated his weapons were a challenge to animate and make them stand out, particularly against darker backgrounds. Ukyo Kuonji was added after it was decided to let the Kuno siblings sit this game out. Ariga states he included her to help differentiate the game from the prior one. The Gambling King was included for the same reasons as Gosenkugi, according to Ariga. He stated many people involved with the game asked, "Why should we include this guy?" Ariga goes on to state that he left much of the work on the Gambling King to Keiro-san, likely a reference to Keisuke Tadakuma, who designed Kodachi, Tatewaki, the principal, and Ryoga in the previous game. Pantyhose Taro is unlocked as a playable character once the game is cleared. Ariga stated Pantyhose Taro was a new character in the manga at the time, and he wanted to include him as the boss character. He was told to make him look tough, and decided to make the character much more muscular in the game than his skinny, lanky, long-armed depiction in the manga. We can see a test sketch of a more manga-faithful depiction here. Perhaps the most surprising omission from the prior game was Akane Tendo. Ariga stated that he hesitated to include Akane in this game, as the idea of her being beaten up as the game progressed seemed unfair. Consequently, he wanted to make sure that her getting hurt seemed cute and comical instead of violent. Returning fighters included Ranma in both male and female forms, Genma, this time as a panda, and Ryoga, Shampoo and Haposai, who is once again a secret character, tucked away as the last boss of Pantyhose Taro's storyline. Haposai could be used as a playable character as well, using a code. I'll share a number of codes now. The debug menu. Hold X, A, and R while the versus screen appears before the battle, and you'll be able to tweak difficulty, stages, characters, damage, and even pick Haposai as your character. To unlock mirror matches and single-player team battles, hold L and R while picking your character. This allows you to take over the second player slot, and you can make a team of computer-controlled characters that way. To view openings and endings immediately from the main menu screen, press Select, X, Up, Left, Down, Right, Up. To unlock Pantyhose Taro, reverse the previous code. Up, right, down, left, up, X, select. Pantyhose Taro can also be unlocked simply by beating the game on any difficulty. And finally, a code that I have not found on any English websites, so you've got it here first. To unlock Spotlight mode in Moose's stage and Haposai's stage, hold R, left, select, Y, and A together as you power on the game, prior to the Messiah logo loading. I presume this works on all versions, but I only tested it on the Japanese version. This adds a spotlight effect on the players in Moose's stage and in the sky of Haposai's stage. Unlike the previous game, Bakuretsu Rantohen makes use of stages drawn primarily from the manga and anime. While there are some that have no relationship to the series, some of the more unique ones include Ukyo's Okonomiyaki Griddle Fighting Arena, the Yard of the Tendo Home, and Jusenkyo's Cursed Training Grounds. The controls for the game were simple, but featured a major improvement over the prior release, the ability to map the controller inputs. This way, the player was able to alter the ability to jump from a button press to up on the directional pad, bringing it much more in line with other popular fighting game series of the time. Special moves were triggered by pressing Y and B, or by holding down the strong attack for several seconds and pressing either forward, back, or down and releasing the attack. The longer the button was pressed, the more powerful the attack. Designer Hitoshi Ariga discusses the decision to make the controls straightforward, explaining that the survey that was included in the first game indicated that a number of young children played the game, and so the game was designed with this in mind. 2 guidebooks were published in Japan. The initial book featured new, original artwork by Rumiko Takahashi and was paired with books for Chogi Ranbuhen and the role-playing game Akanekodan Teki Hiho. The game proved to be an important title in the United States when it came to making inroads for anime and manga-based properties abroad. Ranma 1/2 was only beginning to be translated in the United States when the decision to license the Super Famicom title was made. In the United States, licensed anime or manga-based games were extremely uncommon. With nothing to help contextualize who the characters were or what the story was about, there was little reason to push a game based on a manga to foreign markets. On the Nintendo Entertainment System, Golgo 13 and Fist of the North Star were 2 of the rare titles that were imported for American audiences, with no attempt to hide their manga origins. The average American gamer would have had very little knowledge of the rich history of the characters in those games beyond the game itself. That changed with Ranma 1/2 Bakuretsu Rantohen, known in America as Ranma 1/2 Hard Battle. For the American release, new cover art was commissioned by commercial illustrator Michael Bobat, and the voices were changed, but otherwise the game was surprisingly faithful to the Japanese original. Unlike the prior game, Ranma 1/2 Chonai Geki Tohen, which had been ported but stripped of its characters and recontextualized into a generic game called Street Combat, Hard Battle had retained the unique humor, quirky attacks, and characters that would not appear in the much slower American release of the anime and manga for another half-decade or more. For many Americans, this game was not only their introduction to the world of Rumiko Takahashi, but to manga itself. Viz began releasing the English translation of Ranma 1/2 in May of 1992. When this game was released in the United States in November of 1993, there were print ads showing the original comic book formatted monthly releases alongside advertising for the game. Because of the slow release of the manga with only 2 chapters a month, the series was only up to the Golden Pair storyline of Volume 4 in America when the video game debuted. One of the biggest cheerleaders for Ranma 1/2 at the time was Electronic Gaming Monthly. EGM was one of the big 3 of American video game magazines at the time, alongside Nintendo Power and GamePro. The magazine devoted a surprising amount of column space to random mentions of the series, not only giving snippets of information about what the series was about, and information about other Ranma 1/2 games being released in Japan, but hyping what was certainly a niche title to a much wider market. The magazine often included obscure jokes that referenced the then little-known title. EGM devoted double-page spreads to detailing the characters and moves, and even the motivations of their in-game stories, such as Ryoga getting amnesia, Ranma trying to get out of classwork, and Gosen Kuki in his sole video game outing trying to win Akane's heart. In the October 1993 issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly, they mentioned the replacement of the Japanese voices with American ones. Initially, EGM incorrectly stated this was done at Viz's behest, and that the voices used in the game would be from the English language dub of the anime. In a letter to the editor 2 months later, a reader wrote, "I am a great fan of the Japanese anime. When I read your review and saw your fact file on the DTMC version for the Super NES, I got quite excited, as it seems that finally the game is going to be done right. The question that I have is, how could the voices be so bad? I thought that Viz was one of the best in translating the Japanese language into English. Phil Wiseman, Miami, Florida." We wonder the exact same thing, Phil, so we called the people at Viz to find out what was the real story on the voices. A spokesperson for Viz stated that while they are responsible for the translation and the new American voices for the videotapes of the series, they in no way had any responsibility for the voices that appeared in the video game. They stated that the video game voices were the sole responsibility of DTMC and not Viz. In the credits of the English version of the game, it states that the English voice work, very minor though it was handled by Mickey's Company. Mickey's Company is a talent agency based in Japan that provides English dubbing and English-speaking actors for various Japanese projects. As of 2020, they are still in business and providing English voice actors for the Japanese market. Over the months, another reader wrote in to ask why Ranma 1/2 seemed to be more popular in the United States than the ultra-popular Dragon Ball Z, which was mostly unknown in America at the time. Why does it seem that Ranma 1/2 has a fair number of fans, but not Dragon Ball Z? I'll bet Sushi X would agree that comics and animation of the long-running Saiyajin saga would do well in America, and would also give the necessary background to show just how cool the Dragon Ball games are. EGM's response helps to give a sense to just how small the anime and manga market was in the early 1990s. Ranma 1/2 has really taken off in the States, due mostly to what Viz Comics has done. But by releasing a comic book series of Ranma 1/2 along with both dubbed and subtitled versions of the anime series, more and more Americans are being introduced to Japanese animation and loving it. DTMC also did their part by releasing Ranma 1/2 Hard Battle here in the States. It's a fun game that nearly every fan of the anime and comic series should definitely check out. Dragon Ball Z isn't as popular for just these reasons. No one has released a successful comic book series, and Bandai seems reluctant to release the incredible Super Famicom version for play here in the States. How unfortunate. Ultimately, Ranma 1/2 Bakuretsu Rantohen was an important milestone in opening up the video game market to authentic, uncompromised, licensed games from Japan. Electronic Gaming Monthly's passion for the game no doubt helped to support the nascent series, and by proxy, helped the manga and anime industry gain a foothold in America. Their scores for the game were promising, more so than the score of 22 out of 40 that Famitsu gave the game in Japan. The letters column, editorial comments, and even the photographs that inadvertently captured editorial changes in the final published version of the game have all helped to form a snapshot of the state of the anime market in early 1990s America. Perhaps there would never need to be another Kato-chan and Kin-chan made into a JJ and Jeff, and never again would a Ranma 1/2 title ignominiously transform into another Street Combat.